What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 9 of the Simulacra podcast. Almost to the 10th one, almost next week. Today, we have our friend Anthony. Is it Lay or Lee? God,
Lee. Yeah,
okay, Lee.
Lee with
I
one.
feel, same thing happened last episode. I should have asked the name before. But yeah, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, yeah. Hello, everybody. My name's Anthony. I'm 19 years old. I'm a film major. I go to UNLV. Also a Clark alumni. Sorry, I never said that before, but yeah, I went to Clark, and yeah, I'm excited to be on the podcast. Podcasts are cool, and sometimes, yeah, everyone should just check out some more podcasts. I have recommendations too, if you'd like.
Yeah, podcasting is fun, and you can learn a lot from them too. It's a lot better to sit down and watch a podcast than just scroll through social media for an hour.
For reals,
But
yeah.
we're all guilty of that. Um, but yeah, first question: film major isn't the most popular thing nowadays. People sort of tend to take a safe route. How did you get into film? How did you find your passion?
Well, it's something that's I guess always been a part of my life. Growing up, my mom would take me to Blockbuster every weekend, rent out like 3 or 4 movies. That's how I spend my weekends, just watching movies, all sorts of movies. And for me, like DVDs were actually like I know they're sort of dying now, but like for me, it was actually very formative in terms of me developing my love for film. Because things like special features were great just for learning, like, oh, this is what it means to make a movie, or like directors' commentaries and stuff like that. It's things I still listen to because it's just so informative about just the process in general. But like most people, movies just seems kind of like a leisure, like pastime sort of thing. And I went more of the academic route, like math and science. That's why I ended up at Clark in the AMSAT program. But starting in middle school, the middle school I went to, they all gave us iPads. It was like a big thing because we I don't know, just innovative learning and stuff like that. But like it went how you would expect. Most kids had games on there, just playing games or whatever. But me, I had iMovie, and so just in middle school, I just make videos and stuff for school projects or just for fun, and just edit together. And it's like most things, learn by doing. And so I kept up with it. And then when I got to high school, again, math and science and stuff like that. But I guess the real turning point was my freshman year. So any of you Clark students listening, Mr. Weller for math,
Oh,
I
I
made a
had them too.
yeah, I made a video for his class. I had a really fun time doing that, and I don't know, just showing it to class, just great audience reaction, and I don't know, that's what I guess ignited the fire. But I didn't really acknowledge or accept that until later on, because like all I would do was make videos and stuff. But I just thought I don't know why, and until I think I probably not even until like the end of my junior year, I'm like, nah, I think I want to be a filmmaker, like for reals. And the whole time, yeah, just watching movies, making stuff. Um, I guess the traditional like filmmaker story, they say, like on the weekends, I get my friends, bring them to my house, and we'd make stuff. Uh, and Yeah, it's just something I love. Like I'm in love. I genuinely in love with
Yeah,
movies.
yeah, your calling, as you said,
Yeah.
and you were able to keep up with it. In a program that's focused mostly on math and science. You were able to keep up with the love for film, and so you just made movies on the side during high school.
Yeah, I mean, most of the stuff I made in high school was like for school projects. But I mean, most people would just do like a PowerPoint presentation or something like that. But I always asked them like, can I just make a video instead? And most of them were cool with it. So just taking advantage of that. And then I mean, over the summers and stuff, I would just do more just things for fun. Um, yeah, things I only show like actually just like a really close group of friends, like 10 or 15 people. And so I have those all just saved on a hard drive. But yeah, just always making stuff. And sometimes I would just make stuff because I'd be inspired. I saw a movie, I'm like, I want to do something like that, and so I just try to replicate or recreate that. But yeah, and not just making stuff, but like I feel like it goes hand in hand, just watching stuff too, and really just being a sponge, absorbing so much, because um, there literally is a lot out there for such a young art form, like in terms of film. Not just American stuff or new stuff, but just going back. classic films and foreign films as well. It's such a rich medium, to me at least, that has a lot to offer.
And now that you actually are in college taking a film major, what kind of assignments do you guys do? Do you still get that opportunity to make movies?
No, it's great actually. It's right now. I guess I'm living the dream because my first semester or my first year of it was mostly like gen eds and introductory classes. So uh, a lot of those were just like watching films and talking about it, which I didn't mind. Like I really liked that, and to me, I felt like that was a good idea because it helped like filter out all the people who weren't there for the right reasons. If you can't sit through Citizen Kane or like Bicycle Thieves, um, maybe you should look at something like I don't know, go into engineering, do your thing. But now I'm taking an editing class, an acting class, a cinematography class, and a directing class. And yeah, all my classes every week, I'm just making something and I bring it to class and just show them, and you get feedback and you just learn by doing. But it's been great. I guess specifically for something like film, it really is about networking though, and just like meeting and talking to new people, and potential collaborators. Finding people you like and you want to work with is really important. And I feel like a little different than other majors where like maybe you're just in and out, you do your work and you're done. Like,
Yeah.
no, film is like something where when class is over, you should maybe wait like 5 minutes or 10 minutes because you never know what can be going on. I mean, some of my experiences just this year just came from just like listening, talking to people, and yeah, once they know your name, I mean, you're set. Like, oh, Anthony, don't forget
Yeah.
to have him. I was just shooting a documentary last week in Reno, actually, and the director, I met him on a different set, and he texted me one night, "Hey, I'm leaving tomorrow morning. I'm shooting this doc. You want to come?" And you just take advantage of the opportunities like that because you never know, never know.
And your professors probably know a lot of people in that industry too. So,
Yeah, yeah. My acting professor, he's actually in Top Gun and what is it? Die
really?
Hard. Yeah, and all sorts of stuff. So he has great stories. And then my cinematography professor, he actually lives in LA, and then he just flies over here like for 2 days of the week to teach us, and then he goes work back in LA. So I mean, they do have a lot of interesting stories, and um, like a lot of just I don't want to say like industry connections, but like we do get like interesting people like just like guest speakers that come every week just for our
Right.
class just to talk. And so that's just really fun and informative to find like it's one thing to like you can look up like Martin Scorsese or Steven Spielberg or whoever you like on YouTube and watch an interview of them for an hour. But it feels so far removed, right? They feel like to me at least
Yeah.
like some sort of a legend or god. But to have someone like in a Zoom call like this talk to you is I don't know, it really means a lot to me at least, having access to things like that. Um and we were talking about this before, but just in terms of resources, like on the school computers, having like the whole Adobe suite, so I can just edit there for free if I wanted to, and things like that. It's been fun.
Because those softwares are pretty expensive.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me about it.
Um, so you're just 19 years old, and it seems like you found, your passion. And we talked about this earlier. You're basically a kid until your early 20s, but it's not expected for you to have everything figured out. What do you have to say for people that, are going to go to college soon and still don't really know or haven't found that one thing that they could just never get tired of?
Um, I guess the main advice for like that is just knowing that that's okay. Like I feel like especially coming out of high school, people are like, "What's next?" And it's okay to say, "I don't know." I mean, it's probably a little embarrassing, and you got to be a little brave, but that's probably the most bravest thing you can do is admit that you don't know something. Um, and because that's the only way you can actually progress. I know a lot of people say fake it till you making stuff like that, but for me, I found actually it's quite counterintuitive to how I've developed as a person. For me, it was always just I don't know, admitting things, just tell the truth.
Yeah.
Is the best
Yeah.
policy,
Yeah.
and and specifically being honest with yourself. Because I know there's like for a lot of people outside pressures, whether it be parents, your peers, or just life in general, that like you're scared that you're have to struggle financially or whatever it may be. Learning that to find something that you know that you're good at or that you know that you can be good at because you have the passion for it is really important. So like they say, like in college, just like take that photography class if you want, or take that philosophy class if you want.
Definitely.
And and yeah, I guess networking can go beyond just film in terms of talking to people who you admire or you like something about them, and learning uh, why they are like that can really open your mind up to a whole bunch of different opportunities, experiences, or just ways of thinking. Um, so yeah, especially that first year of college, test the waters, go to a meeting, talk to people. Um, and I know college can be expensive or sometimes, so there's other routes outside of high school too. I mean, I have friends who just started working straight out of high school. Some that went to college, some that even joined the military, and there's nothing wrong with any of those things as long as you're comfortable doing them. Um,
Yeah. And sort of you're just peer pressured that college is, the only way to sort of have security in life. But
I mean, I don't know. One thing that does bother me about people and their perception of education, or especially college, is that they treat it like trade school, where like I don't know. A lot of people they say this in high school and stuff like that, like about math or whatever the subject would be. Like, I'm never going to use this in my real life. Like, I don't know why I'm learning this. To me, like, I love calculus and things like that because, like, besides from the actual equations and formulas, it teaches you like the fundamentals of problem solving and things that are really applicable to your life in so many different ways. And to really just ignore that or just to put it aside is very just not productive. Um, and so for college too, like education to me still feels like something that's like an intangible gift that is, or just
yeah,
craft that you form for yourself that it's really just for you and I don't know, make you more. I don't want to say a better person or more interesting, but in a sense, yeah.
you
um,
definitely get to grow. You're meeting a lot of people. You're taking classes that you probably are more interested in. You're learning a lot, and you're learning especially from people that are smarter than you. I feel like that's where you learn the most.
yeah, and that's the thing
Um,
too of finding that line between blindly following people, but also being open to listening. Because I know a lot of people that are very just skeptical or critical about certain things, and they just don't really listen. When you can really, I don't know, just expand your worldview, as I was saying before.
you can definitely learn from anybody.
Yeah, for real.
Everybody has something to give.
I was just listening
Um,
to this interview like this really famous trumpet player. His name's Wynton Marsalis, but his dad was a musician too, and he was saying how when he was growing up, his dad loved to talk to homeless people and just like made friends with them, a lot of homeless people. And his dad was saying like some of the most talented people in the world are homeless. So like for us, sorry, long story short, you never know who you can learn from.
yeah, exactly, exactly. It's not, judging the book by its cover, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, so going back to the whole like a lot of people go to college for like a job or whatever it may be, or some sort of financial stability. As a film major, graduating college, what do you see yourself doing? Like, you do just keep making movies? What do you do?
Well, within like I guess the film industry at large, there's a lot of different avenues you can take. And outside of graduating undergrad, I've really considered all this interesting of going into grad school or just going out and making stuff. Um, but for me, because I want to be like a director, potential writer, but I do everything: editing, cinematography, and all that stuff. I think it's really important for I guess people to develop a sort of technical skill like editing or something like that. That like there's people are always looking for editors for whatever content it may be, and so that's just a great skill if you're just trying to get a job and just like pay the bills and do that while you're working on like your more creative stuff, like because like it is like a lot harder to do, like no one's looking for directors, and in that broader sense. But for myself, I feel like out of college, probably just gonna start making stuff with the network of people I have around me. Um, and that's the thing too of like leaving your ego at the door where I'm not afraid to also like I don't always have to be in charge of stuff, of being on other people's sets and working. Um, I know a lot of like interesting as production assistant, but whatever it may be, and just learning a lot through that because I feel like it's another thing with like film or any art in general, like as a career path is that it's very difficult for I would say 90% of people to just like do that right from a very young age. Because to me, I guess to be an artist, you have to have lived some life, so that you can express in your art.
Yeah,
So
exactly, exactly.
I feel like up until I'm the age of 30, like I'm giving myself that sort of window to like make stuff, work again, network more, but also just to like live and experience more. Um, Probably out of UNLV, I thought about moving to LA or New York, but also other places too, like Atlanta, and just having a different sort of experience and opportunities over there. And a lot of great internship stuff too. Like, it's not that hard to actually just look online, and if you really do the research and dig, and just work on your resume in terms of uh, building a repertoire of work and the skills, those crafts. Like it's stuff you should just be doing. You don't always have to show stuff if people what you're working on, as just as long as you're doing it for yourself.
And
Um,
being so young, you don't have all that life experience to where you can express it in your art. But how do you sort of just sit down and come up with ideas for making films?
that's
And
good.
what's the longest film you've ever made? I feel like that's an interesting question because you think of a movie and you think an hour and a half or something. Um,
Well, yeah, I guess a lot of questions there. So I'll start with the um,
how do you get your ideas?
yeah, that one, I guess is the most versatile answer in that sometimes I'll just be inspired by watching other work or movies and things like that. I'm like, I want to do something like that, or just and that's the thing too. I'm like, I guess you call it a cinephile. Like I'm a constant movie watcher, and I wouldn't call myself so much as a consumer though, because like I feel like a lot of people they just take stuff in, like me, I digest it. I really process it and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
I was gonna ask you that because being someone who's interested in film, you sort of have an eye that catches something that other people wouldn't. Um,
Yeah, and I mean, but if the story's good, I'm just like anybody else. I'm just watching what's happening. But
yeah,
uh, yeah, I do tend to watch a movie I really like anywhere from 3 to 10 times if I'm really like just dissecting it and stuff like that. Um, but that's another thing too. Like I am pretty regimented, and I try to watch at least a movie a day, and just like um building that sort of thing, because I think of it like something like a jazz musician. Like if you want to be a great jazz musician, like you need to know like all the standards in every single key, just so you can get up on stage and improv with everybody else, because like there's a common language, jazz. And for cinema, you'd actually be surprised how many film majors actually don't watch that many movies. I'll be talking to my classmates and be like, yeah, I don't watch that many movies. I need to watch more. And that's why we're there to learn and all that stuff. But it's it's I don't know. Some people they just have it in them, I guess, in terms of wanting. And not to say that you need to have seen every single movie to make something, because I know plenty of people who have seen everything, but they're better at working on other people's stuff than actually doing their own. So again, it's all about just how you apply those skills and knowledge. But going back to the question, um, yeah, sometimes I'll be inspired by certain things, but I think most often it's just sometimes. I guess to be an artist or a good filmmaker, you just have to be a good observer. And I was actually going to say that about podcasting and stuff like that. You'd be surprised. I feel like I learned a lot more about listening than actually speaking doing a podcast. But what was it? No, yeah. So I'll just be observing everyday life and stuff like that, and like with it, fact is always greater than fiction in terms of like just great interesting stories that are happening every day all around us. When people say that their life is boring or like nothing, like some people nothing interesting ever happens, I feel like that's a very like anti-human like thought, because like I think to be human means to experience drama in whatever it
definitely.
may be. But so just like being attuned to things like that, and just drawing from like my life and my friends and my family's lives as well, is just great inspiration. um and yeah, carrying things around like a notebook, or even just on your phone like voice memos and stuff like that, just always I guess taking notes of the world.
You really just it's not like you sit down and you brainstorm. It's something that you're constantly working on. Pretty
Yeah,
much, you're always absorbing ideas and making observations. But Yeah, I was gonna ask you that later about if you were like some sort of perceptive person when you watch your movies, because it's like a person who makes music. You know, they might notice different sounds or like layering and all that when most people just listen to a song and like it or not. Um, all right, now we can segue into something different. Maybe we could tap back into film. But you said that you also have an interest in fitness, and you almost considered being a kinesiology major.
Yeah.
Um,
So I
Go
growing
ahead,
up,
talk about that.
I'd say like probably like since I was the age of 8 to like 15 or 16, I was like pretty chubby, like overweight. I was probably like 5'2", 180 pounds, pretty chubby and stuff like that. And then, puberty, but not just that. I really just like decided to make a change for myself in terms of diet and exercise. And I mean, I was on the swim team, and then I also exercised on my own too, as well, in terms of just like at home or just weights and stuff like that. And it really became a big part of my life. Like, I love learning about it, and I think it's like to me, like I know we have PE and stuff like that, but it does feel like something that's like a fundamental part of like it should be taught like the same as like English or math or something like that. Like people should learn about their bodies, in a more, I guess, I don't know,
Like from a health standpoint?
yeah, like I guess I never liked the idea that like health is just like one semester that we take, or like PE, like it should be like something continuous over your life, because like health is something you have to deal with like for your whole life. I feel the same thing about
Exactly.
art in terms of like it should be like a part of the curriculum. I sorry, a little bit of tangent. Apologies. I guess I should have started with that. Is that I
That's
do
okay, that's okay.
I do go into a lot of tangents, but that's why I have uh, Francisco here to help reel me in. But I always was frustrated with the fact that in the school system, in terms of budgeting and stuff like that, fine arts were always the first thing that were cut, because to me, fine arts are just as important as math and science and English and stuff like that. And in my experience, some of the smartest people I knew were in the fine arts, you know? So it's really just not benefiting anybody, to me at least. But
I
back
agree
to
with that. It's some sort of education for the soul, you know, that you're just not
that,
getting
exactly.
from hard math and science.
It's
And I feel like fine arts almost go hand in hand with things like math and science.
yeah, yeah. Like I mean, there's like to me, there's a clear correlation between like music and math in terms of the way that metering and numbers and tempo works. And yeah, same thing with sciences. I feel like the way that like you can study and analyze and something like that you can apply to anything as well. The scientific method should just be called the method of life, because yeah, it's the same things you do in music or film or
Yeah.
painting, is that like is you trial and error, right? You're just figuring out what works and what doesn't. So um yeah, but back to the whole fitness thing. um I would exercise every day, and I would read a lot, and I would and that like part of like being at Clark in AMSAT program is that like I thought that fine arts was, I was embarrassed that I kind of like wanted to do that instead of being an engineer or whatever like that. So I thought that kinesiology was like a good segue away from that, because I mean I love math and science and stuff like that, but once I took AP physics, things changed from there. But I know a lot of people.
It wasn't for you.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I think it's really important that people educate themselves on that stuff, and learning their own bodies. It's is really important, and it's similar to what I was saying about like math and how I apply that. I feel like the discipline that like exercise and fitness and nutrition teaches me, I apply to other stuff as well. And yeah, I just think it's an important aspect of life. And yeah, I I'm no expert, but I like to give advice and stuff like that, or I'll work out with people, and it's fun.
Well,
It's
you've
not.
also done your research because you found that sort of interest in kinesiology or the health and all that.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing too. I've gone back and forth on this, because with the internet, information is so readily available. but also misinformation. And so
That's
really,
true.
really, finding out the truth can be difficult for you, and I understand that. But I think that, like most things, you just have to be open to, um, if you're really interested in finding out, like, just the facts and stuff like that. It's out there. I would recommend people, if you're really interested, like a good intro, just go on YouTube, look up Athlete X, Jeff Cavalier. He's a really cool guy and gives a lot of good I just informative videos and all sorts of stuff. I mean, I took an anatomy my senior year of high school, and I felt like I'd already learned all this just from watching his videos. So a lot of great resources out there, a lot of bad ones too. So just be careful, but
Yeah,
never.
it's I've gotten advertisements on uh like trainers and all that that try to tell you about your body type and you're eating the wrong foods and
Yeah,
all
I don't
that.
really buy into the whole body type thing. I mean, like a little bit, but more. It's just like, and that's the thing too. I used to be like, that's what I'm saying. I used to be more like strict about like what I ate. I used to track, like I used to like log everything that I ate, track my calories and my macros and stuff like that. I don't really do that now because like I realize that like part of living life is that you have to enjoy, like, just enjoy certain.
Definitely.
And so I think I found a happy medium where I work out about 5 days a week, and then if I'm not too busy, I mean, I eat pretty healthy. I just at home and just and normal stuff. But if I'm given the opportunity to, I will just eat out wherever with whoever if they want to. And just finding that balance is great. And I think that's the thing too. Like, I don't like the idea of diets, like, because the perception of diets is like it's a temporary thing. Like, you're going on this diet to lose 10 pounds, and then just gonna go back to doing it. Like, no, it's like a real lifestyle thing. So finding something that you can implement forever is really important. It's not just about losing the weight or anything like that. It's about staying consistently healthy is really important.
And the good thing is that most, if not all, universities offer like a gym and training
Yeah, it's
centers and
all
all that.
included with your tuition too. So take advantage
Yeah,
of those resources
resources. Definitely.
at
Can you
UNLV.
still use that? Is that open right now?
Um, I don't believe it's open right now, but I did last year, and it was great because yeah, the gym has everything you can think of in there. Um, but they also offer um, fitness classes and stuff like that. Like a Zumba class, a boxing class, and like a yoga class, and stuff like that. And those are all part of the tuition. Like, they're technically free for students.
Mhm. Yeah.
You just gotta sign up and go, and great resources there. And I guess it's more related to UNLV, but I mean, in the health and wellness, like the fitness center, they also have an area with these massage chairs. It's like a full body massage. You put your whole body in. And sometimes after class, I'll spend an hour in there just chilling, listening to music. So, I mean, great resource. Um, I don't know. I don't know if people are going to UNLV who listen to this or not, but sometimes I'm a little hesitant to share that because like I just want it for myself. But hey, it's out there.
Yeah. If you go to UNLV, don't use that because it's reserved for Anthony.
Mm.
Um, Another segue, third topic, marine biology, which I thought it was interesting that you brought that up because we live in the middle of the desert. You know, we have Lake Las Vegas, but it doesn't really count. How did you get into that, into the whole marine biology thing?
Well, yeah. So I guess a little bit more about me growing up. Um, yeah, I was really a math and science guy. Sure, I love movies, but I love math and science just as much. It was really fun for me. And to me, I really liked marine biology. It Growing up, I always had pet fish, and stuff like that, and I just thought fish were cool. I still do. But to me, like, I guess this isn't like a new concept or idea, but like the ocean feels like this, like feels like outer space to me in terms of this the mystery and discovery that can still be had to this day. But yeah, just learning about marine life and fish were just like, it really interested me. Like, I mean, I don't know if it'll show up with
He's got
that.
a fish tank. Yeah,
Uh,
it's not
it's,
gonna show with the green screen.
whatever. I mean, we'll that would be surprise for whoever listens to the end. Incentive. I'll show you my fish tank if you stay to the end. But yeah, I mean, in junior high, I was in this capstone class, and we all had to give like a 30 to 45 minute like research project presentation. I just did mine on fish. It was really fun and cool. And to me, like part of the thing like I love about having a fish tank or and stuff like that is like same thing. I guess people who like are into like plants and stuff like that. It feels very meditative in terms of when I clean my tank or just feed my fish and just watch them. Like I'll be in my room working on stuff and just having the break to like look at something besides social media. Like that's the thing too. I deleted my main Instagram, um, and I don't use any social media really. Um, and so just having something like that is nice. I guess that's something we can talk about too because I don't really like social media.
You
And
have
I
to
know
mix with
as
nature
like
for a second.
yeah, as a content creator or whatever, I know
Yeah.
it's very important in terms of building, I don't know, whatever the cloud or whatever. But to me, I'd rather go about it a different way. I'd rather just like not have my whole life out there.
Films were made before, way before social media.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
definitely, I guess it's, I was going to mention this earlier. You said that a lot of people that do film, it's not like you have to be an actor, you have to be a director. Like there's editors or for podcasting, there's people that used to work on radio stations and now they're podcast producers instead.
yeah.
Um, and that's definitely going to be big in the future because the amount of people that I guess being a content creator on YouTube or whatever can be considered an actual career nowadays, and all these people need editors. Um, so that's definitely something you could. Would you be interested in doing that and then pursuing film on the side? Not on the side, but to
Simultaneously, yeah.
sustain yourself with the editing job, and then
Yeah, I mean, I've been editing since I was in middle school, so it's something I'm familiar with, and I enjoy doing it from time to time. Not gonna lie, I do enjoy editing my stuff more than other people's, but I have found it to be a much more rewarding process in terms of I learn a lot more by editing other people's stuff than my own, because I learn like what not to do or what works and stuff like that. But I mean, again, it's a great entry level job. Um, but I feel like a lot of times you have to also be careful because if you don't really have a passion for it, you might end up in a hole where like sure you're doing a film job, but if it's editing, but you'd rather be a cinematographer like shooting on a camera, you're not gonna be touching
yeah,
the camera a lot in an editing bay. So there's a lot of different opportunities and stuff like that in terms of you can even just join a guild like the um what is it called? The ASC, which is the American Society of Cinematographers. They have programs there too. They can teach you or and stuff like that, or even the DGA, the Directors Guild of America. I mean, there's entry level stuff there that a lot of people do, and there's a lot of things besides like the head creative stuff, like being an editor or a cinematographer or a director or a writer. Like you can be a production designer or a costume designer. Um, and actually, I talked to my friends about this a lot too. Like, there's a lot of stuff like engineering wise that like is necessary for film, whether it be just for the actual technology of a camera or like a rig in terms of
yeah.
building some sort of elaborate thing, but also for set design too. There's a lot of stuff that goes into just making a movie. To me, filmmaking is not is like a culmination and amalgamation of life, not just on the screen but behind the screen too, in terms of the amount of people you need dedicated to all sorts of different interests and passions to be working to make just one coherent story or vision, whatever you want to call it. Um, but I guess yeah,
That's kind of a beautiful way to look at it.
yeah,
Um, there's there's a lot of different roles that take place in making a movie, and try to make it, I guess, feel as real or impact you as much or
yeah.
spread the message, whatever it is.
And I know I've seen this about people at large, but especially specifically for film as well. Like a lot of people go in wanting to be directors or whatever, and realizing that they'd rather be a costume designer or something like that. So like going in with an open mind for anything is great. And I've seen that around me too, where like a lot of people they found their passion in another thing, but they're still like that's the thing. You still got to consider yourself a filmmaker because like everyone is essential, and that's the thing. When I make stuff, I'm really grateful that I have the opportunity to make it with these people because I can't do it without them. And you can say that about any creative endeavors, just or just life in general. Just be grateful and appreciative of the people around you who are helping you do your whatever you want to do,
100%. Yeah,
because they might not always be there.
definitely. And explain to me what exactly a director is, because I enjoy watching movies, and we've all heard of Spielberg and Tarantino and all this. But what do they actually do? Do they write a script?
So a
What?
director, A director is a problem solver. A director is somebody who needs to have answers because essentially your job is from whenever you start to whenever you end answering questions. Um, I guess a more easier answer is that like director is the one that just like is the head of the production, and he's the one, or she, it could be anybody. That's another thing too. And they're the one that um, just needs to have that vision, and they're the ones that are communicating with everyone else to execute it. So the director is just essentially the boss of the production, where they're telling people what to do. But in my experience, I found it better that if in directing you don't just boss everyone around like, okay, you do this, and this. It's more of a collaboration. You talk to them. Okay, so how do you feel about this? I have this idea, but what do you think? And and as a director, I think it's like a thing where you just have like you seriously have to leave your ego at the door, because at the end of the day, it's not about you or what you think. It's about this project. It's about this the
Yeah,
like everyone is
the
creating
conjunction of people.
is dedicated to making something bigger than themselves, and that's how it is. Film is forever. When you're making this thing, you only have one shot at making it good. So that's what I'd say. Like, sorry, a little bit of a tangent, but in terms
That's
of the
okay.
difference between like film and theater, is that theater is like this like ever evolving, changing like thing where every night is a different experience. But film, you only have the one shot, unless you do a remake in 30 years. But even then, it's very singular. So going back to the topic of directing is just mostly problem solving, because um, I would say about 9 times out of 10, um, the day won't go as you planned it, and learning how to roll with the punches, in a sense, improvise, um, is, I guess, an essential skill as a director, and learning how to communicate um, your vision, your ideas is also really important. Like you have to be a people person. I think, like, I really like, you have to like.
Working with others.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not even just with the crew, but specifically with the actors. Like you, you can't just tell an actor to cry. Like you
Yeah.
have to work up to it. You have to, and that's the thing where it's more making a collaboration. When everyone feels like they're contributing, it makes the project much better, because there's just like this subconscious thing where everyone just tries harder. If you're just bossing them
Maybe
around, yeah,
maybe this is an ignorant comparison, but it's like with a team in sports. If
for
they're all
real.
feeling like they're working together.
No, I guess that's what you would call the director. Like I could say like director more like a team captain, or I'm in it with everybody else doing it. I just like I happen to be the one that you have to ask questions to,
uh,
But I'm
Exactly.
same level.
And
But
I'm glad you brought up theater because I was going to ask you, as a film major, sort of how do you see the difference in between theater and film? And I didn't even think about how in a play, you're doing it every night, and with a movie, you only get one shot,
mhm,
and that's sort of what marks the legacy for it.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, do you enjoy theater as much as you enjoy film? What differences do you see?
I'm much more of a film person, but I do have a deep appreciation for theater. But to me, they really do feel like two separate mediums. Um, like the theater is the art, the medium for like the writer, like it's like someone who writes for like plays. It's I feel like it's much more fulfilling for them than like a screenwriter for a movie. Film is more of the director's playground, um, and that's just because um, the director has more to say about what's going on. Because in theater, once the play starts, the director's just watching, just hoping everything goes okay. But in film,
Right.
you have shots, you have scenes, you have a whole schedule. Um, but there's a whole bunch of just like different little subtleties in terms of like acting and performance. For theater, it's this thing. It's theatrical. It has to be big. It has to be so that the person all the way at the end of the theater can see you and feel you. But in film, it's like the direct opposite. It's all about subtlety, because in film you have the camera, and that's the main difference. Um, the camera totally changed the game in terms of, I guess, live storytelling, recreating life. Because in film, you can put the camera right next to someone's face. So just the subtlety of their eye welling up, you can tell. You know, that's all you need. You don't really. And in terms of film theory, like I really believe in film language, and that like there's like the same way where like we study language like in an English class, like this means something and represents things, like the juxtaposition of images means something if you
Right.
want to have the intent.
Literary devices, but in film.
Yeah. And so having the camera as a third party, I think I guess is obviously the biggest difference between film and theater, and knowing how to use that camera, because in theater you're watching everything, but in film you're showing somebody something, you know. So yeah, it's like it seems just to have a bit more intent, but no shade to disrespect for theater. It's great. It's
Yeah.
hard.
And being in university, do you work with kids that want to be actors, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I'm taking an acting class, but it's acting for directors. So like everyone in my class are like filmmakers, directors, but they're acting in other people's projects. But I've also worked with other actors, and actually, I love theater actors more than film actors, because like I don't know, they just seem to have a different sort of way about them or passion or whatever it may be, and so it's much more fun to interact with them. But yeah, I mean, I've met people that want to be everything, and that's what's inspiring to me, to find people that are just passionate about what they do, you know. um what was it? I was gonna say like I I know this sounds kind of bad, but a bit of a relief that if everyone wants to be a director, you know, it just dilutes the pool. So knowing that other people, directors, costume designers, cinematographers, editors, okay, that's cool. I have collaborators.
Yeah.
But
One thing that I've always, or not always, but sort of thought about is that all these actors and directors were those sort of like weird theater kids you would see in high school, but they end up, pursuing this passion and doing what they love. So who cares, And so that's, meeting those theater kids in college that maybe are more emotional or whatever it is in their passion,
mhm,
more interesting to work with them.
yeah.
Um,
So I never had that in high school, the theater experience. I was much more of a band geek, and so I grew up just around music people and musicians and stuff like that, and that was just a big part of my life as well.
Could that also help with film? Because, soundtracks or music, like let's say in a horror film or whatever, music does play a big role. So do you think being in bands sort of gave you that another skill?
No, totally. I feel like I've learned actually the most about filmmaking from actually being a music person, and I'm glad that it came from like a different sort of art form than film, because um, same thing like fitness and all that. Like music taught me a lot of discipline and also a lot of collaboration. Because sure, there's solo artists and stuff like that, but music is mostly a collaborative form, or like whether it be band or orchestra or jazz or marching band. Um, you're with other musicians and you all have to play to make this song together. Like it really is that sort of thing. Like a section is only good as their weakest player, and knowing how to work as a team. Like teamwork is like a major part of it, and just like basic things like playing a note in tune. You have to, in a sense, like I guess in a more existential sense, you have to be in tune with your other players so that you can play in tune. If you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Understand each other. Um, but like certain things, like I feel like marching band, especially, is essentially just filmmaking, but with instruments, because like there's very similar tasks, and the hierarchy of leadership is very similar as well. I mean, it's called a band director, you know, but so I learned a lot from that, and I had a lot of leadership positions there. I was a section leader, I was a drum major, which is essentially a conductor of the band, and those are like skills that like essentially like I feel a direct one-to-one correlation into what I do as a filmmaker or director. But also just yeah, um, for me, band was just a great community and stuff. Like I like throughout all of high school, I never ate in the cafeteria. I only ate in the band room. So just things like that too. Just having a community of people that have similar interests is important in anything you're doing. But yeah, music is great, and uh, yeah, I still play my instruments all the time. So that's another thing I took. Like, you don't always have to pursue it as like your career, but don't let go of like your, I guess, hobbies or whatever like that. Play
Definitely.
whatever it may be.
Um, maybe you can educate me more on this topic, but the film industry, at least from an outsider's perspective, has sort of changed. You know, like people used to go to the movie theater, and Hollywood was a big thing, and now we have like streaming services and Netflix, where you don't have to be in a movie theater and have that whole experience. You can just watch the movie from home,
Mhm.
and not be surrounded by an entire crowd. What differences do you think that's sort of going to bring in the future?
That's a good question. Well, like we really are living in a sort of transcendent time when it comes to film, and I go back and forth on this because I'm a big proponent of the theatrical experience. And sure, I'm subscribed. I have a Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, all that stuff subscription, but I don't actually really like streaming in terms of the larger implications for the film industry at large. But regardless of Hollywood, just at large, um, because what it does is like similar to something like social media or something like that, where it's just so readily available and just so saturated that it kind of loses its impact. When you're in it, when you have to make the drive to go to a theater and you have to sit there in the dark with other people, but be respectful and quiet and watch this thing. It's a different experience in terms of watching a movie on your phone or on your TV or whatever like that. Because I guess um, it also comes from the way I view movies and cinema is that like I feel like on if you go on Netflix and you watch a movie, it's almost too easy to stop watching that and watching something else, you know? Like what I was saying before, it's just about consuming. It's not really about digesting. So now you're people are just in a sense mindlessly going through whatever it is, whatever the new show or the big thing that everyone is talking about is. So I get really bothered by that. On the other hand though, um, these are also great resources in terms of the amount of films or just content at large that people do have access to. Um, but it's just a great resource and stuff like that. But um, yeah, I don't know. I guess I just hold films. It's sacred to me, and it
Yeah.
feels it loses its sanctity once it becomes. Um,
And that's the thing, like, now we have binge watching where you could watch an entire season of a show
mhm.
in a day or in a week, and it sort of loses its meaning, you're just going through it. You could even pause in between, or you're just in bed.
Yeah, yeah,
Where in a movie, you're sort of making the commitment in the theater. And also sometimes the crowd could play a part. I remember when I watched Avengers Endgame, and
no,
there was that one scene.
experience. Like like to me, it feels like going to church in a certain sense. Like it's like a religious thing where like everyone's there focused on this one,
Yeah.
and like you don't even have to like look at other people, but like you feel sometimes you could feel their emotions come out there if it's a good movie, right? But what was I gonna say? Sorry, I just lost my train of thought. But no, yeah, there's just like yeah, the theatrical experience is great. I mean, I have certain problems too, but like also inevitable in terms of I don't like I'd rather like actually shoot on film instead of digital and things like that. But I also understand that like digital is like much more affordable. And I mean I shoot on digital because it's like yeah, it's a great way to learn and stuff like that. But it's the future. Um but there's just like certain things that like you have to consider like the fact that no filmmaker goes in to make a movie with the intent of people watching it on their phones. Like, like
Yeah.
it's I don't know how to describe it other than hmm, I don't know. It's just a weird it's weird to me, but I just might also be a little bit stuck up about it, which I'm fine to admit. But
Yeah. I mean, again, not the most educated, but I try to make my comparisons as someone who doesn't understand as much. But it's like what comedians are going through right now,
oh yeah,
where
yeah.
for a comedian, it's not the same to do a live stream on YouTube or whatever than to be in front of a live audience, like
Mhm.
doing a gig or at a bar or whatever it may be. Uh, and I guess it's the same with somebody who makes movies. It's when you know that your audience is just going to be at home, maybe pausing the movie or talking in between. It's not the same as when you know they're all driving and paying and going to sit in this movie theater for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that, um, that's what I was gonna I just remember I was gonna say before is that what streaming does is it also it promotes certain things to be made and others to not be made, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because with like things like Netflix or other streaming services, like they just want content, so they're just burning money, just making so much stuff, and so you get a lot of different like things and different perspectives and different stories, which is always great, but at the same time, you also get a sort of overflow of just generic stuff to just fill a quota in terms of um, there's nothing really being done here than making sure that people are spending more of their lives on this thing, and that to me that feels bad. But I also think like some of my favorite movies, I've never seen in a theater, so it's not to say that the experience is completely eradicated from not being in theaters, but I feel like it's just going to make it a lot smaller, the community or the whatever you want to call it, the amount of people that might view film as something more transcendent than as an escape for 2 hours.
I, I don't know why I feel like I have to mention this, but I just watched a movie recently. It was a James Franco movie. I forgot the name of it, but it was he was uh it he was playing the role of Tommy Wiseau from The
Oh,
Room.
Disaster Artist. Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah,
Love The Room.
yeah.
Mhm.
And I thought that was really interesting, and I was sort of thinking about that when you said like the whole theater experience where like people really meet up once a year to watch The Room. It's like this sort of cult thing.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I thought that was really interesting, and that movie was it was weird, but I liked it. I liked it a lot. I didn't even know that movie exists until then.
yeah. I mean, I have The Room. I actually have a copy of The Room on Blu-ray. Like, I showed that to all my friends and stuff like that. I knew about it way before The Disaster Artist. But I think
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Disaster Artist is a great film in terms of same thing like with Rocky or like a sports movie. It's like someone who has the passion for it. And sure, maybe they may not be good at it, but to me, a bad film is better than no film. And to really follow through with something is impressive to me. And and yeah, I think it's another thing too. It's just like going back to like the whole streaming thing. Sometimes I feel like there's a lack of respect when it comes to watching something on streaming and just like they put something on in the background, but they're mostly on their phone or doing other stuff. And I'm not asking
Oh
everyone to
yeah.
just become cinephiles or whatever, but um, I think about this too in the larger sense of like there's something inherently, I guess, egotistical when you start to put a monetary value to art. Um, and
Yeah.
it's difficult because I want to make a career out of being an artist, but at the same time, that's not what I'm in it for. So it's like this weird balance
Exactly.
you have to do. But so it because once like an art like thing like once a piece of art becomes essentially a product and someone I guess rents or purchases it or whatever, they can do whatever they want with it. It's not up to me, the whole death of the author sort of thing. But um it's a weird line to toe in terms of
If it can become your career and support you, awesome.
Mhm.
That's like best case scenario. But I guess when you are chasing your passion, like your drive can never be financial. It
Yeah.
just kind of loses its meaning.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, being able to sustain yourself with something you love is like the dream, for all people that create something of their own. And I was gonna ask you this later, but I'm assuming when you like make a film and you spend days or weeks or months on it and you see the final product, that's a proud feeling when you're creating something of your own.
Yeah, there
Uh,
definitely is like some sort of like end of uh end of production sort of like liftoff or high, you feel like finally finished it, because like there's plenty more times in the process where you feel like shit. Like I'll finish the script and like, oh god, I'm never gonna write again. And then you go through that by yourself, but then you gotta show it to other people. It's the most like embarrassing thing like in my entire life every time I have to show someone the script. And then you get past that. Like, okay, let's just make this. And then that's another thing too, in terms of directing and solving problems, I would also say that like most of the time directing, it feels like I'm just constantly taking L's and learning just like how to accept how to just like get past that and just keep on going because like you still got to make a movie even if you mess up, you know. So that's a whole process in itself. And then when you're editing it, you know, there's so much fear and anxiety going into the edit because you're like, oh God. And then you see your first cut, you're like, what did I just do? What did I just spend, you know, my life, like part of my life doing, right? And but then you work through it, you know? It's
Yeah.
like a relationship. It really just feels like a love affair where like it has its ups and downs, but if you're really committed to it, you know, you just stick it out because you know that like your faith and the love for it is worth it. And then you finally get to the end of it and you're like, ah, you know, I did that. And
Relief. Yeah.
we were talking about it before, like something like, oh, I wish I was doing this or that. Just do it, you know? And
Exactly.
even if it's like I said before, bad movie is better than no movie. Obviously, everyone wants to make a good movie, but hey, things happen. You
I
gotta
mean that's what I was gonna mention with The Room. Like supposedly it's such a good movie because it's such a terrible movie.
but
But
the
that guy was really he like I don't know where he got the money from, but he poured his entire life savings into making that thing.
yeah,
And it
and
was his passion and he made that movie. That's just insane.
The Room is just an interesting movie in itself because it's a movie where every decision made is wrong, but it's still an interesting decision, and it makes you laugh and just like, what is going on right here? So there's that aspect to it too, but yeah, that's what I was saying in terms of like I don't know. I want to say I'm over apologetic, but like I understand if like something like I still don't like certain bad films, but at the same time, like yeah, I know that a lot of people work really hard on this, and so I'll still
Yeah.
get. But
And I guess there's also like an aspect of bravery, you know, to put out your creation out there.
yeah,
And
I, like
that's what
I
I was thinking about when you say that you're embarrassed by when you write a script or whatever. Um, but you know, you're still doing it, and you're gonna learn from others, and you're just gonna get better at it.
yeah,
So,
I
uh,
think it's not just artists, but everyone at large. You just got to be brave sometimes and take that leap of faith, whatever it may be. I mean, maybe you have to yeah apply for a job, quit a job, relationship stuff, whatever it may be. You know, sometimes you just gotta, like I said, leave your ego at the door. Finally, be free.
and
Um,
who cares what other people think?
never know what will happen.
Exactly. And you're always gonna be more critical of yourself than somebody else. So what might seem bad to you might actually be really good to the person watching or listening.
Mhm.
Uh, So maybe you experience that when you create something and then that you think isn't that good, and then you show it to someone and they're like, actually, it's pretty good.
Yeah, you never know who will be watching you or your stuff, and at any time. And you also know you never know when your shot will come or how it will be. So just like, and I'm not just meaning like a like you know your shot to like the top, but just in terms of opportunities for whatever. Just being open to um, things is just great. So many times, all I had to do was say yes, and
It opens the door.
great experiences and memories were made by just doing that. But also learning,
Yeah.
it's also a very important skill in life to learn when to say no.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's actually been the difficulty for me of learning how to gauge a situation. You know, it feels like poker. You know,
So you were just saying, like when your time is gonna come. What's your end goal with film? What are your biggest dreams with it?
oof. I mean, I have a few. I mean, obviously, to have actually made a feature length film um, is an accomplishment all on its own. And so, yeah, to be a working director, filmmaker would be great. But I also just have things like I'd actually like to like, and I've talked about this with other filmmakers and stuff like that. Like build a community within Las Vegas or just Nevada, you know, because like so much of it is concentrated in Los Angeles or New York. But I mean, that's what I was saying. Like, I wanted to learn from like people in Atlanta and stuff like that, because like there's actually a really big film community like in the South in Atlanta, like Tyler Perry's studios out there, stuff like that. And so, um, having some sort of like community film scene or whatever it may be in Las Vegas, or just like because I have friends in Reno too. in Nevada, I think would be just a great resource, not just for me, but for filmmakers going forward. And that's another thing. Like I take this like from being a music guy, like the most like generous and giving artists I've ever met in my entire life were jazz musicians. Where like I've actually met like some of the greats, like and like Arturo Sandoval or and others, and they really just have a passion and love for it, and they just want to share that with people and have them have the same love that they have for it. And I want to create the same thing for film because film like the industry does feel like this very standoffish, like cliquey, exclusionary thing. But if I want the preservation and the continuation of cinema, then a community needs to be made to promote not just my work, but anybody's work who's really passionate about it. So I have
And
goals for that, but yeah, mostly just making films and yeah, I'm a lover of just like film history as well. So as much as I can do to just preserve
yeah,
what it means to me.
and I was going to mention that because, well, first of all, I'm sure the industry is going to change a lot in the future. You already have like CGI and streaming. Who
It's
knows what's going to come in the future?
like almost every day now. It's crazy.
And also you mentioned before, like when a school has to lower their budget, like the first thing they cut is fine arts, and they should arts should be some sort of like common core thing. Just like I think philosophy, I guess that's our biases, but I think philosophy should also be a class you take
Oh
in high
yeah,
school,
like I
sort of teach you how
do
to think.
like social sciences and critical thinking. We were talking
Yeah,
about this before, but like specifically with like our generation, it really does feel like different in terms of the amount of like information and like how well informed and knowledgeable we are, or even just how talented. Like everyone seems to have just some sort of like thing, but like no one really knows how to think critically about
right.
anything.
So you
And
don't know what to do with it.
yeah, you don't know what to do with that sort of talent or hobby or passion. So I like, yeah, I have views for that too in terms of arts, philosophy, and all that stuff. Hey man, get everyone reading Nietzsche in fourth grade. We have maybe not Nietzsche, but I feel that'd be cool.
Um, but yeah, you talked a lot about preservation of film, and since STEM is like the next big thing, and we're cutting down on fine arts, cutting down on critical thinking. Less people go into music and all these sort of career paths. Uh, do you see a lot less people doing it in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I go back and forth on that too. I do feel like it's changing. Where for our lifetimes and maybe the past 100 years, even like film has been like the most innovative, like central art form, and like even in the past 30 years, video games are even more profitable than anything. And there's all sorts of stuff. The technology is always changing and will always be changing. And so I've had to come to the terms with the fact that like film will probably fall into the same category as most other art forms. I don't think it'll ever die out, and I feel like movies are here to stay. But it's already happened where, like, really realistically now, most people only go to watch Avengers or whatever blockbuster, and they're not really going out there to check out whatever like little drama, indie film, or whatever it may be is being made, and that's where like the real interesting stuff is going on. So,
I
um,
feel like there's almost like you can almost tie that with consumerism. Like Avengers is made and then you end up buying a bunch of Avengers related stuff,
yeah,
whereas you don't do with just a regular like indie film or some drama or just
yeah, no,
something that's not part of a series.
directly tied to that in terms of the way that um, the industry has always been this way, but has been essentially accelerated in its perpetual change towards super high profit margins, so that whatever
Yeah.
gets the most money uh, is being promoted, and that always means it's the best quality of material, And I love the Marvel movies and all that stuff, but there's a lot more out there, and movies,
Yeah.
like sure, movies can be entertainment and escapism, but they can also be so much more.
And to people watching, what do you suggest? How do you find those movies?
Um, it's that one is really is just easy as a Google search, like 100 top 100 films, like I would recommend going to the DGA. Just look up dga.com, I think, and look up their top 100 films. And that's a great resource right there. You can also look at the IMDb list and stuff like that, or the BFI. They have an AFI. They have their own list, but um, I would like. It's a little hard because I mean it's another like subscription service, but it's, there's a foundation called the Criterion Collection, and they're really into film preservation and foreign films and history and all that stuff, and new films too. But great special features and just great a collection of films. But they have their own streaming service called the Criterion Channel. It's like $7 a month, but if you really want to get into movies, it's a great investment. But there's so much other stuff out there, and there's great things available. But yeah, also like if people who live in Las Vegas, check out Zia Records. I have a lot like not just music collection, but their movie collection there is awesome. And just walk through the aisles, like you'd be surprised at the titles you'd find. But yeah, or even I feel like ask your parents or stuff. Like older people, like they've been around,
Yeah,
and like they might have movies that you never even heard of in their recollection. So yeah.
and foreign films too. I've gotten that from my parents since they're not American. So
What's some of your
that's I'm sorry.
what's some of your favorite movies?
I like Spanish film a lot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I think they're in terms of comedy, they're great. Uh,
There's this one old. It's from the '80s. I can't remember the title of it. Um, Let me see if I could find it real quick. But
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, continue.
Uh, yeah, I went to Spain and I visited my uncle, and he showed me a bunch of Spanish movies, and I just fell in love with them because they're hilarious, and a lot of them are really weird. There's this one director called Alex de la Iglesia, and
Hmm.
he's like the Spanish Tarantino.
Hmm.
Uh, and yeah, really edgy movies, I guess. But being exposed to things other than Hollywood, I
Yeah,
guess, uh, is different. Or like even I've even watched some like Bollywood movies, and those tend to be like 3 hours long, and
yeah.
they're a whole musical, drama,
Yep.
comedy all in one. It's crazy.
I couldn't find the title of it, but yeah, there's actually some great Spanish comedies. But yeah, that's cool. And foreign film is great. I love European film and East Asian film. That's more my cup of tea. Like like when I started like looking into things like the French New Wave and Ingmar Bergman, so like Swedish filmmakers, really changed my mind, like blew my mind, and the way changed the way I viewed cinema. But also just like Korean and Japanese and Hong Kong filmmakers like Wong Kar-wai or
recently, recently, I've been seeing a lot about like Korean film being really good, and I guess that movement sort of started with Parasite.
yeah, I mean Parasite is great, and everyone should check out Parasite. But
But there's
um,
more out there. There's definitely more out there.
to me, actually, like Korean, like I would call it the Korean New Wave cinema movement. Like that's been happening, like probably started in the late '90s up until now. Has some of the most interesting stuff coming out of it in terms of like the whole world, like movies that they're making. So definitely
Hmm.
check out some stuff like there's great stuff. Like check out Old Boy, the host from Bong Joon Ho, who's the guy who
I
directed.
was. That's crazy. Is Old Boy is it like a horror or it's like a thriller movie?
It's like a thriller, action, revenge type of movie. It's a bit.
I was thinking about that. I was like, boy. I remember seeing something with boy. This is
Old
crazy.
Boy is a fun one. But yeah, and there's all sorts of stuff too. Like even recent stuff. So like Parasite was great, but there's this one called Burning from Lee Chung Dong, which is a great just like slow burn like thriller. It's on Netflix. And there's this other one called The Handmaiden from Park Chan Wook, who's the guy who directed Old Boy, and that's just a great one. Again, a bit of a revenge tale, but um, I just love I love what's coming out there right now. It's very interesting stuff, and it's
Yeah.
a new and a bit crazy, which is cool to me at least.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Different culture, different upbringing, different film. And last question about film. You were talking about how, like, for example, a company like Netflix is really just pumping out content for people to watch, but there are like Netflix productions that are genuinely like really good. Like
Yeah,
Bird Box went big. That's just like the first Netflix movie I could think about. Black Mirror is great. Uh, do you see that replacing it with the quality that they're putting out there?
Replacing just like Hollywood, or
Like, do you think Netflix could eventually make movies that are put in theaters?
I mean, they already are like for them like so Netflix has like two distinct things like they're when they make original content and stuff that's directly like made for the streaming service, which is essentially that like they gather from the algorithms of like, oh, a lot of people watch this, and that's why Adam Sandler has this big deal because like a lot of like they from their data, people like to watch Adam Sandler films, so they made a big deal with him to just make them directly for Netflix. But then they will also do this thing where they will give a whole bunch of money to distinguished filmmakers who make great stuff to make stuff for their platform, but they also get a theatrical release as well. So just last year, I think you had like 3 or 4 good examples, like the Irishman, which Martin Scorsese made for Netflix.
That movie was
Which
really good.
yeah, that one, and but then they play in theaters for like 3 or 4 weeks, then they go straight to Netflix. Marriage Story from Noah Baumbach, that was really good. There were a few others last year. I can't really remember, but they've been doing it for a while now. But I wish they would do more things like that instead of. And I also like I like TV and like yeah, Black Mirror is great. What else? Stranger Things is cool. Game of Thrones stuff like that. But
You enjoy movies more.
I like movies um because it's like a singular experience, like an in and out thing. When I watch a TV show, that's like a 12 hour to like a 2 week commitment. If I'm
Yeah,
binge
yeah,
watching,
yeah.
it's a long time. And sure, you get more character development and stuff like that, but sometimes it just feels like I feel this way specifically about like documentaries. I don't like documentaries that are like 10 or 12 episodes long. You really could have done this in like maybe 2 to 4 if you were good.
Mhm.
So like it's
It
just
just feels like it runs on.
it's a different medium. It's a different medium.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
People I don't like how not to say it's bad, but like people are treating it like the same. But you gotta understand that these like the way these people tell stories are different through these mediums. Um, but yeah, it does seem like that's another thing too. Like movies are going to the side, theaters are going to the side, but TV uh, is really in its golden age, and that's not a bad thing. Like there are genuinely great television shows being made right now. Um, it's just for me, it feels like there's so much out there being made. Um, in a sense, puts it to an exponent, just exponentially a lot more. Because instead of like 2 hours, like 10 things that are 2 hours long, you have 10 things that are 20 hours long. So
Right.
maybe I have commitment issues, but that's
And sometimes, like, as they make more seasons, it seems like they're just running out of things
yeah, and that
to put out there.
it puts a strain on creators as well because maybe some creators they found their shtick and they just want to do that for the rest of their lives. But I feel like a lot of them like after a few seasons or a few years they want to move on to the next thing, but they can't because they have to make this whatever it may be.
For their fans or whatever it may be. Yeah.
That doesn't just happen in TV. It happens in movies too when people keep begging for sequels and stuff like that. And so and that's the thing because sequels make money, so it gets a lot harder for people to make original stuff or just even this mid-budget stuff. It always has to be what's being made. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And to sort of end off the episode on a different question, because I am very interested in like the social issues that we're being presented with and whatnot, like reforming the education system or social media, especially, which is what I was going to ask you about. What sort of led you to deciding that you were just going to delete everything?
Well, I just found that it was very counterintuitive to how I wanted to live my life. I found that um I would like most people, you want to just like take a break for 10 minutes, end up turning to an hour of just scrolling through whatever. And it felt very mindless. It felt like I felt like I was getting dumber being on it, you know? But the scary part is that I felt like I felt like I was becoming okay with becoming dumber. Like yeah, that's whatever, because everyone is, right? But realizing that, like, no, like in a sense, the choice to do these things, and really, because like especially for things like to me, like Instagram feels like the most dangerous one because I feel like that's the one that's mostly used and seems like the most leisurely one. But I felt afraid to get rid of these things because of like things like people would message me or contact me through only these things, or I felt like I was exposed to more contacts through these things. But in reality, it wasn't really helping me in any sort of way. I
Right.
also don't like the social aspects of it. Of I felt like anytime I went out with people, we couldn't go 1 hour without someone bringing out their phone to check whatever updates or stuff like that. And that just goes to larger, like humans are addictive creatures. It's just part of it's part
Definitely.
of human nature. So if it's not that, it's gonna be something else. And it used I just actually thought about this recently within the past month where I used to get really bothered by that, where like people they don't really know how to deal with things because they're just too obsessed with being on their phone, or like when something when they do become in conflict with someone or some sort of situation, their first instinct is shut down and go on their phone. But then I realized that, I mean, maybe that's just also a part of just life in the human because maybe before phones, it was something a bit more dangerous like drugs or alcohol or cigarettes.
Yeah, cigarettes, big one.
Maybe phone is a little bit better than cigarettes, but to me, phones are no, specifically social media feels like cigarettes of your mind, and I think I'm very optimistic, I guess, and hopeful in my view that it really will become something like cigarettes, where like we'll get to the point where like sure it's still out there, but like no one really smokes or
We
it's
understand it.
accepted. To and
Or definitely to see the positive sides that it's like transformed into something that's not a cigarette, transformed into something that's positive and connects people.
yeah.
But I don't know, being someone who enjoys film, I'm sure like in older movies, they always had cigarettes in their hands or something.
Honestly, that's the thing too, because like it's a funny thing where I like when I say I really believe in like the idea of like a film language and like in like film theory, like the juxtaposition of certain images will cause you to have certain reactions. So like I feel like it is one thing though. Like in my head, I think it's been ingrained that like cigarettes do feel like this very cinematic thing, like whatever it may be. Um, and I guess bridging that over to the social media thing, having this overexposure to just images or ideas or information, sure, on one hand it may be good, but I also feel like it's detrimental to the way that we view things because we become either more desensitized to whatever graphic stuff we're looking at, or just desensitized to information at large, where things just move at such a fast pace where nothing really matters. So getting off of social media really does feel like a weight lifted off of me.
Hmm.
Um, and I encourage everyone to do it. Maybe you don't have to delete it all, but like really just like set limits and restrictions for yourself, because I think that we live in a world that rewards instant gratification. So you have to set those disciplines for yourself, and I think
Yeah.
that actually gives you greater rewards in the long term of when you do use those things or whatever it may be. Um, but yeah, I think that social media is bad and that it's ruined our perception. But I'm I'm uh,
Hopeful.
I'm hopeful, and I know that it's not meant to do those things. It just is right now. So, hey, things can change. People change.
Well,
Everything
like
changes.
like you said at the very beginning of the conversation, there's a lot of information out there, and we're blessed for that. But there's also a lot of misinformation, and maybe that's why social media has kind of gone to crap.
Yeah. I mean, and there's certain things too where like it really is just a change to the way the world is run. I mean, like it seems like we can't go a day without getting sort of political news through something like Twitter. That's the source. Twitter is the source. So it's
That,
crazy.
yeah, that was kind of the wake up call for me in social media when Twitter was in completely political. I was like, no. I mean, it's not like I was disagreeing with the political views that were out there. It's just like too much, and there's more to life.
Yeah, I mean, and I go back and forth on certain things like that too, because like to me, for like I really like philosophy and stuff like that, and I feel like philosophy is everything. But for most people, they don't want to get existential all the time. They're just trying to chill. And
Yeah.
You can say the same thing about politics where, like, sure, you don't want everything to be political, but in a sense, everything is political because everything kind of has some sort of underlying message, whether it's there or not. I feel the same way about film. Like, when you see an image and, like, that shadow means something. And sure, maybe that was just an accident when they're shooting it, but it means something now because it's on camera, it's in film.
Right.
So I guess it also really comes down to whoever's patient enough to really break down these sort of things. I think about, I guess, branching off of social media in terms of just Silicon Valley or big tech at large and the ethics behind it, where it feels like a lot of things are just because we can do them doesn't mean we should. So
Yeah.
I really do think that that's another thing that also needs some sort of
Reform.
reform. Yeah, and it may be just as simple as having an ethics board of critical thinkers, philosophers, and stuff like that, like a new age of people
Definitely.
who are thinking about the larger implications of how this will affect the world because they really are. Like there's so many things out there that seem to be affecting the world that pretend that they're not, and that really
And
bothers
that, and that's why, uh, like as we mentioned earlier, why having like fine arts or philosophy classes is so important because it gives you that like humanistic side, where just math and science doesn't give you it. And when people go into big tech or Silicon Valley, they need that ethical education too.
me.
And I feel like it's lacking that right now. And you can tell with the decisions they make.
Yeah.
Um,
Also, I get kind of sad or frustrated too because there is a bit of a problem with higher education as well in terms of there's this. I've noticed this thing too where not that it's been like sold out or bought out or anything, but like the competitive nature of academia at large, I think has become a bit of a problem in the way that people are too. Uh, I don't know the right word is too persistent in being right, where they can't really accept different ideas, and so it becomes a place that is not about um, discovery or promoting things. It's about putting things down, and that's just a lot of negativity, So
yeah.
there are also changes that need to be made to academia, I guess,
Mhm.
But yeah, that's what I was saying before about like what we've been talking about. There's a lot of information, a lot of misinformation, and sure, listen to everybody, but um, you use that common
Think,
sense. Yeah,
ask
think.
questions. Ask questions are a big thing. I read this book over the summer and it talked about like how recently, especially, there's a lot of like fine arts people or philosophy or literature majors that are landing jobs in the technology industry because they're discovering that they need that human side. Um, so yeah, I think that's a good note to end the episode off. Uh, Definitely know a lot more about film than I did an hour or 2 hours ago, which is great. And I feel like this is what these conversations and podcasting is all about. How much we can learn from other people, and like you're saying, someone you can always learn from someone else, and listening and being able to put that out there is a big thing. And you had a podcast of your own, right?
Yeah, yeah. My co-host, he moved away, so it's been a little tough. But we think it's in the bag and stuff like that. But podcasts are great. Um, and that's another thing too. I mean, like, I guess the shift has already happened. We were talking about the whole idea of theaters and movies and all that stuff, but it seems like the shift has been made already from radio to podcasts. So things happen, but maybe it's for the better because I love podcasts. So yeah, guys, check out more podcasts. And if you think you have a good view on or angle on the world or certain subjects, start your own. There's no
Definitely.
harm in doing that.
100%. Anybody can do it. You just got to start with everything. It's like exercising, changing your diet, making a podcast, reading a book. You just got to start.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
More people should read as well.
reading is a big thing. But I feel like that's something our generation doesn't have because we have phones and it's that instant gratification that we seek. But thank you for coming on. This was a really good episode.
Thanks for
Uh, and I hope you keep up the film because the fact that you love it this much is awesome. Like it's inspiring to see that. Uh, and hopefully see you do big things in the future and carry that on.
Li-
Uh, and we'll have you back on when that happens, so we can talk about that. All right. Thank you guys for watching. If you made it to the end, like, subscribe. I don't know. Do
Yeah.
whatever you want with it.
Uh,
And
fish tank, fish tank.
oh yeah. Fish tank, fish tank. That's the reward for making it to the end. See, be in touch with nature. And yeah, have a beautiful day. Peace out.